And it's my pleasure to welcome to the podcast, I have Marquetta Spant from P21 Mind-Body Wellness Coaching. How are you, Marquetta?
I'm great. How are you, Tony?
Now, I'm saying that with a K, aren't I? It's actually a QU,
Marquetta.
It's a little bit foreign for us Australians, so I do apologise if I am getting that slightly wrong. So today, I'm really excited to interview you today because more and more leaders around the world are really struggling with the balance that's required within their lives and, you know, to be well and to be healthy and to be fit, I guess, in respect of undertaking the disruption that we're feeling in today's world. So let's get started by hearing a little bit about the Marquetta Spant. I've said that wrong again. Marquetta Spant story. So tell me your story.
Okay. Once again, my name is Marquetta Spant, and I actually live in Orlando, Florida, but I grew up outside Chicago in a small city called Rockford, Illinois. I started my career actually in IT, so I traveled around the world, and I worked in various central offices doing test and turn-ups on digital cross-connect systems. So I did that for a while, and once I got kind of exhausted with that, I wanted to be home most of the time. I actually decided to go back to graduate school. And in graduate school, I went into project management. I've always been one that was always organized. And so from that direction, I was working in corporate and I was going to school on the side. And I noticed during that time that I wasn't feeling all that great. But my body was telling me one thing, but I just kept going and going. So one day after college, after I finished graduate school, I went to the doctor, and the doctor was like, "Oh, you're fine. I had all these various tests done, but you're great. Everything is fine." But I knew something was just really out of sync. And so what had ended up happening after graduate school, I moved back to Chicago for a job opportunity, and but I was so weak and so lethargic, and I just couldn't. It was difficult for me just to get out of bed and get going in the morning. So I went to another doctor, and he was like, "Oh yeah, you have a hormonal imbalance, and it's considered Graves' disease." So I'm like, he gives me all this information, but really didn't quite explain what's really going on with me. So he prescribed some medication. I took this medication, and unfortunately, I had an allergic reaction to it. And I had a really bad allergic reaction where I found myself, I passed out in the shower, and I had to literally, it was bad. I had to crawl into I was at my sister's house because my voice was so faint because what was happening, my muscles were becoming really weak, and I had broke out in hives. So I went she took me to the emergency room, and they immediately admitted me into the hospital. And at that time, they gave me two options. It was either they were going to kind of play around with the medication, give me a different dosage, or they gave me an option for radioactive iodine. I didn't know any different. All I know was how I was feeling. I never wanted to feel that way again because what the allergic reaction caused me to do was start to itch from the inside out. And I don't know if you ever experienced that. That is the worst, worst feeling ever. So I opted for the radioactive iodine. And so when I go in to get this medication administered, the doctors are there in these suits, look like a spacesuit, and they have this capsule, and they're all gloved up and closed in, and they admitted I had to literally reach in and take this capsule, and not until later, because they told me I was going to be radioactive, and I had to kind of seclude myself from everyone else. And so I took this iodine. I took the iodine. I went into isolation, and I came out feeling even worse because, so I felt like this for over a month. I lost my hair was falling out, difficult to get out of bed. I was bone chilling cold, just all these symptoms. So I go to another doctor a little after a month later, and he was like, "Oh yeah, because you no longer have the hormone to produce your thyroid gland, you're going to need to be on Synthroid, which is a synthetic. So it's a hormone in replace of them removing the thyroid." So I'm like, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So I started on the new medication, but I never quite felt like I was myself. And I realized at that point in my life that I had to become my own leader, basically, in my own life. And I had to I had become an advocate for my own health. So that's where I started doing my own research as far as what were some natural remedies out here. Just mindset. It took me on a whole journey, on the holistic health side of wellness. And it's through my own research and study is how I actually finally started to feel normal again. And so based off of that, my experience is kind of how I even came into the wellness industry, So for many years, I had been working to just kind of bring my hormones back in balance. Now I have hair again, and I can actually get out of bed and not feel disconnected from my body. I now feel great again. So I started working back in corporate, and one of the stories I kept hearing was more and more women would come to me like, oh, I'm so tired, or I just feel I have the hot flashes, all these different symptoms, or the hair thinning early. And I was like, but they go to the doctor and the doctor say everything is fine. And I'm like, and sometimes you leave the doctor's office and you feel like, is there something wrong with me? And it's like, there isn't anything wrong with you. Always listen to your body, because one thing I realized during this journey, during the research, my body gave me all type of signals. Our body always does. But because we live in a world that is always constantly on the go, we never quite take time out to really listen to what's really going on. And it would have been nice, and if the doctors would have said, okay, well, talk to me about what's going on in your life right now. Maybe it could be stress that's causing this hormonal imbalance. Maybe it could be the types of foods you're eating. What's going on in your life? Nobody asked me those questions. It was, let's either re-administer with the dosage or let's go ahead and get this radioactive iodine. And so what I now talk to my clients about, and I'll kind of get into that, is what's going on in your life, what's going on in your world. Because a lot of times, if those questions were asked to me, I would have been like, I was in graduate school. I was under a lot of stress. My diet was crappy. I was constantly eating out, and I was under just a great deal of stress. And so if someone would have talked to me, I would have went a different direction. So what has helped is just bringing nutrition into my diet, eating clean. And first and foremost, I had to learn how to eat because I wasn't eating all that healthy. And so, and so that's where P21 came out of. I ended up starting the company because I realized there were so many other women out here that was going through some of the same difficulties. And I was like, it was time for me to become a leader in my life and to be an advocate for other women as well.
That's it's probably a really common story, isn't it? And I've had a number of my friends go to doctors because they're feeling a bit different, or that they no longer have the drive that they used to have. And there's almost an acceptance that, that's just part of aging, that's just part of, and there's no sort of those questions that you were talking about certainly don't get asked in and around male health, as well as I would imagine with female health. So it is really quite challenging. And, we live in a world, as we all know, that's fast, that's on the go. It's easier to stop in the McDonald's drive-thru on the way home than what it is often to make ourselves something healthy. Now, what I really like about what you've got on your website is that as a coach, you're not just going to tell people what to do, you're going to show them, because you're part of that role modeling around, healthy living. And that's an amazing story that you just shared. So tell me a little bit more then about P21 Mind and Body. So why have you the name's intriguing. I'm intrigued by the name, but what is it that how do you work with clients with that? Basically, how I typically start with a client,
they come in, and I always allow them to have them do their own, like an intake form. And so, but I also work with zytotechnology. And so it's a form of biocommunication. So with the zytotechnology, during our consultation, we'll look at like their health questionnaire and find out some of their pain points or areas that they're actually struggling with their health. And then I run what is called a wellness report. And so if you look at the body, the human body is made of energy. And so, what this system does is basically, it would be the same way you would go to a doctor's office and fill out a questionnaire, but this time it's like your energy has certain signals and it gives back to the system. So it's creating a wellness report. It looks at the organs, it looks at your emotions, it gives certain product selections. So what it does is create a baseline for me to follow in addition to what the client has already communicated to me as far as what they're dealing with. So then what we do, we sit down together, and I always look at it like a puzzle. So I always like a puzzle, and we just kind of I work to map out a action plan for the client. So I don't know if on my website you might have saw there's a butterfly, and there's these 4 pillars of this butterfly. So within each wing, there's an area that we work on. There's mindset, there's the body, so we deal with lifestyle, also social. Social is very important because we have, what is your relationship with your spouse, your children, or just relationship with friends and family. So we take a look at that, and also as far as healing that wounded child within, the inner child. That creates a lot, and then also the environment. A lot of times we don't always have access to clean, healthy water. And unfortunately, just the regular water we use to bathe in is filled with a lot of different chemicals. So, and then also we work these 9-to-5 jobs, or even sometimes we work even many hours, and we're stuck in a building. So how much exposure are you getting to sunlight? Are you getting a lot of nice, natural air? So I like to look at all 4 areas of the client's, their life. And then what brings it all together is energy. And so as far as the brain gut area, I always look at the energy first. Once I see put together an action plan, I immediately go look at the digestive system. What's going on in your gut? Because I've became really intrigued with the microbiomes probably 2017. So I was doing some research. Yeah. So with the microbiomes, I learned that there's this little tiny ecosystem that lives and thrives in our gastrointestinal tract. And so a lot of times when we start having these cravings, or we even sometimes get stressed, is because there's something going on there. It's these little microbiomes. They're like it's like an intelligence there that is triggering your mind to want your brain to want to crave certain foods, or may have certain, not so great thoughts, and, sometimes have you in a not a really healthy way. So we work on trying to clean up the gastrointestinal tract. And a lot of times when I mention like detox, people just like, really, no, I can't do a detox. So I just what about clean eating? Let's transition to a cleaner way of living. So it's a gradual approach. I don't like to just throw them in, even with the wellness scan, which I really like. It tests for, it looks at energetic points as far as what your energy field says it needs when it comes to food, its food preference. But it doesn't look at like food sensitivities or allergies. So in addition, in a consultation, I'll run a food report. And if I want to go take a deeper dive, I'll also look at the digestive system. So I can run all these different biosurveys to kind of help my client to have a greater breakthrough as well. I didn't have access to these tools when I was going through my healing process. It was just process of elimination. And it was through me healing and working on my gut, my gastrointestinal system, is how I had my greatest breakthrough. And
so is this part of the process where they talk about the gut being the second brain?
Yes.
Or is this,
Yes, it's about the gut. But I always like to say the gut is the first brain, because think about it. When you think about something or you have that gut feeling. Like I always say, it's what I feel in my gut, not so much in my head that I really start to follow. And so I said we have a gut brain, we have a heart brain, and we have this physical brain. And sometimes even though I work with the gut, I teach my clients how to, when we're dealing with stress, how to go into your heart space and just do focused breathing. See, because there's neurons actually inside of the heart that send more information to the brain than the brain does to the heart. So we do a lot of heart focused breathing. So my goal is really to kind of help the client. If you can manage how you're thinking, being more in control of your emotions, a lot of times you may not want to go in emotionally, or you may handle stress, find different techniques in order to bring yourself into a balanced state.
So tell me a little bit about the clients that you work with. How do they, and what are they looking for? Do they come to you because they're feeling lethargic, or do they, is there a set sort of a customer or a client that comes to you, or do you see a broad mix of, say, leaders and people?
It's a broad mix. When I first started the business, because I was working in corporate, most of my clients were my colleagues. And they were my colleagues. So, and it amazed me because, it didn't amaze me, but the amount of medication that my colleagues were taking just to be able to get through day to day. So even in corporate, my cubicle became like this safe haven where they felt comfortable just coming in and talking with me, just helping even if it was just listening. I realized some people, they just need someone to listen to, just listening. And sometimes I found myself coaching and giving advice, on the job, and then actually outside of hours as well. And one person that really stands out was my director. When I was still in corporate, I was part of a pilot project, and with the pilot, we were rolling out a new tool, but no one never really talked to the team about if the tool was actually necessary. It was just something that was going to be rolled out. And so he was so frustrated, like, why is no one doing these updates? Why is no one using a new tool? I'm like, well, did you ever have a focus group or just really talk to the employees and find out if this is what they needed? And he was like, well, no, they're struggling. So we just thought that they needed this new tool. I said, well, why don't we just maybe get the team involved and find out where their pain points are? Because if there's areas that could use improvement, it's the group that's going to be able to give you more direction. And he was like, wow. He's like, well, how are you so patient? I said, because this is what I do on the side. And he was like, wow. And he was like, do you think you can help me with my soft skills? And I was impressed. I was like, wow. So he was willing to listen. Yeah. And I noticed that. So as I was there, and one day he asked, he was like, why are you doing this? He was like, you're so good at, doing the talk coaching, the coaching, and, just being a good listener. And that was almost like a wake up call for me. I was like, am I really, I enjoyed working in corporate. It had its highs and lows, but I found more fulfillment, when I was outside doing this type level of work. Yeah.
So P21, where does that come from?
It stands for the power of 21. And that's Maxwell Maltz's statement. It takes about 21 days to make or break, create new habits. And it was 21 days when I had my greatest breakthrough, when I was dealing with my own health. And so it just kind of stuck out. And I was like, okay, P21. And I just kind of rolled with it. Yeah.
Excellent. And, it's a great story. And one of the things that resonated with me is that when you started working with your director, I know that when I was working in corporate, that my immediate line boss actually came to me and asked to work with him so that he can improve his listening skills, because he had one of those. Unfortunately, a lot of leaders have the tendency that they talk over people and they don't let them finish, and they'll ask a question and then they'll answer the question for you. And he sort of had some feedback in relation to that. So I felt honoured to be, and humbled, I guess, to be able to work with someone like that, because it really does help you understand the path that you're on and where you can make your biggest impact. So,
yes.
So your journey's been one of, I guess, personal inspiration. Is that?
It has. It's been
based around what you've been going through.
Mm-hmm.
So along the journey, who else has inspired you?
I would have to say my dad. So it's been a personal inspiration. I would say my dad, and also Neville Goddard. Neville Goddard, I always say, even though he's been long gone for many years, but he, just listening, I realized part of the challenges that I was facing, and it was my mindset. It's how my whole perception when it came to my reality, even when it came to my health, it was all about how I perceived things to be. And so when I learned the power of thinking, it transformed my life. Like a lot of times when I would get into a stressful situation, I would pretty much get into a negative state. And that state is creating something in me and also outside of me that may not be for my greatest benefit. So I had to learn. So what Neville did, taught me how to be able to bring myself back present and to evaluate my emotions and pay attention to how I feel, because it's through the feeling that which actually creates a state within your body. And so I always say emotions buried alive, they never die. So I can take those emotions and I can bury them deep within. And a lot of times we do that. I have my basement analogy. We keep all these emotions down there in the basement, and every now and then they come up to the surface into the living room area with you. And you're like, nah, I'm not trying to deal with that. You got to go back. But it's still there. So I've been learning through Neville is to look at my emotions head on, instead of trying to bury them. Yep.
So what are some of the triggers or warning signs that a leader would see or feel that would then be benefited by coming to see someone like yourself to work with them from a wellness space?
Some of the warning signs would, especially if you're pay attention to how you're feeling. How you're feeling. Also, your digestive system. Are you gassy? Are you irritable? Are you feeling irritable? The health of your hair, your skin. Your skin tells a lot about what's really going on inside of the body, and just your overall state, even your mindset. Do you feel yourself brain fogginess, kind of negative a lot? A lot of times those are signs of something else that's going on. And like I said, outside of the energy, my first level, the first area that I like to look at is right in the gut. Because when you can start healing the gut area, you can influence, basically that's your endocrine system, that's the hormonal system itself, and cognitively as well.
And are you seeing, as we know, we've been going through this pandemic now for about 18 months or just under. What are you seeing with some of the leaders and some of your clients? Is this, the wellness has the stress sort of created more stress, or are you seeing people being able to cope with it? What's your general feel from your client base?
More stress, a lot of fear, so afraid that they're going to actually catch the virus, not really knowing how to protect themselves. So I actually had a client that was traveling about 45 minutes, and she only had one leg to come and see me. And I gave her the option to do remote, because we can do remote visits. Yeah. And she wanted to be out of her environment. Like, she just needed to be out of that space. And so it was just it's been very interesting just to get the type of feedback. And I know the media has a job to do, but sometimes it's a lot of fear. So if the news is your main source, your mind, the unconscious part of the mind, is constantly absorbing this information. So we have to find other ways as far as how to be able to deal with life, in the midst of chaos, in the midst of this pandemic. And so that's something also that I have been teaching, not just my clients, but also my friends. It's like, just focus on what you have control over and do your best to kind of stay in the present moment. Pay attention to how you're feeling. And the best approach to try to keep yourself healthy is to boost your immune system. There's a lot of natural foods and remedies that you can use in addition to supplements to keep yourself healthy. So and that's where I said sometimes when you become an advocate for your own health, become a leader basically in your own life, you start, even though the media may tell you one thing, but you also take your own health. You take control of your own health as well.
Very important advice. What are some of the traits that you would see or expect to see in leaders of today?
One of the traits is just being a good listener, effective communicator, and showing compassion, especially during these times, showing compassion. And then someone that's just really, they're able to just get into the trenches with you, because your team is only as strong as the leader.
Yeah. The real focus on leadership, it should always be in and around the people in your team and how we're going to bring them together to produce some results. And one of the challenges that I've seen with that is that leaders aren't immune from this feeling of ambiguity and uncertainty and anxiety and stress. And some of them have turned incredibly inward, which is very, very frustrating for their team, because their team are looking for some sort of calmness and reassurance. And the leaders, some of the leaders that I've been working with have focused incredibly internally, and it's always a challenge to get them out of that. So, but I guess we're not getting out of this crisis anytime soon. So For leaders that are currently working through the crisis, what are some of the tips that you can provide them now to keep their head centered, to keep them focused, and to keep them productive and performing?
Basically, just self-care, and with that, because even though you may feel like you want to go inside yourself, and it could be to hide and not deal with things, you have to, even if you just go outside and just take a walk, get some sunshine. You'll be amazed at how sun can kind of re-energize you. And talk to your team. That's very important, and let everyone know, like, yes, we are in this pandemic and we're here to support each other. And I think once the team knows, it's like my leadership, they also, they feel this too, like they're not immune to what's going on. And just knowing that the manager or leadership, they actually care. And, and part of that, in order for leadership to be effective when it comes to dealing with their employees, they have to first take care of themselves. And that will go back to, like I said, self-care, checking in with how you're feeling, even your own mental state, how are you managing your emotions? And it's very interesting that you talk about that. I haven't mentioned it, but I left corporate in March. I decided to take that leap of faith and focus on my purpose and work on my dream. And so when I was doing my exit interview and I talked to HR, I did talk to HR about, because we're in the midst of a pandemic, they probably need to have additional courses or something in place for leadership, because leadership, where I came from, they were struggling, because no one knew how to deal with it, and just trying to continue to motivate the team. And she really valued that advice. And it did come back to me. They started having different focus groups, letting the employees know, if you feel like you need to take time out, even if it's just for mental health, don't feel like, you don't have to feel guilty and not take care of yourself. So I really appreciated that. I'm like, even though I had to leave, but but it was one of the best decisions that I made. So I'm very happy about that.
Yeah, it's still having an impact even when you leave. That's awesome.
Yes, I still. It's one thing. A lot of the employees that colleagues that I met, we're still in contact with each other. So it's amazing. Yes.
Excellent. Now, your journey has got some incredible troughs in it, I guess, and there are probably times that you felt like you were failing, so that wonderful word called failure. So tell me about how you respond when you feel that you failed or that you feel flat if something has faltered along the way.
Yeah.
How do you get yourself out of that?
I learned to look at failure a little different. Based off of life experiences, I look at it now as an opportunity. So yeah, I look at failure as an opportunity because it was a learning experience. So in order to become a great leader, sometimes you may have to go through what we perceive as failure, and it's just part of the journey. And so even now, even when I'm in difficult situations, I always first bring myself back to the present moment, analyze, is this something that's within my control? And if it's not, I let it go. Where before I would just really beat my head against the wall trying to figure it out. I always believe life is fluid. So I'm either going with the flow or I'm going against it. So, and if I'm going against the current, I'm going nowhere. So I accept things for what it is and I go with the flow. And I have learned over the years, life seems to work out more for me by doing that.
That's a good analogy, isn't it? And obviously when we know where we're going, that flow can be really, really powerful because we're just aligned with our purpose. And no doubt you're seeing that now that you're doing what it is that you do and you love doing that, and you're not confined in your corporate cubicle anymore.
No, don't miss it.
I can imagine. Leaders are readers, Marquetta. So what book has had the biggest impact on you?
Dr. Joe Dispenza's Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself.
Okay.
I like that. I really enjoyed it. It's basically talking about how to create like new neural pathways, even just repositioning and changing how you get up in the morning. And one thing he always says, we think 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day, and 90% of those thoughts are from the day before. And then those thoughts are from the day before. So if you think about it, it's like, what have you really created? What are you really creating? So it's basically living life from past events, past programs. And that just really stuck with me. And I was like, So what I've started doing is just transition, even though like where I live, sometimes instead of going to the bathroom in my bedroom, I'll go out down the hall just to kind of switch things around, how I start my day, because we're programmed sometimes just to be systematic. And we just keep running life on these same set programs. But if you want to create something new, you got to start doing something different. And sometimes that may even take some radical change, like me taking that leap of faith from corporate.
Absolutely. And we see that so often with people when they just get caught up in the routine. They do what they do as soon as they get out of bed, and automatically they're just reliving, potentially the route from yesterday, as opposed to creating a new route. And then they talk about, well, nothing's happening for me. And because, well, you're basically living the same day over and over. You get caught in that Groundhog Day scenario. So, I've heard so many good things about Joe Dispenza and some of his work. And we've actually done a little bit with one of the clients that I contract to. So it's quite amazing that concept of being able to form and develop habits and new neural pathways, I think is really critical. And, it's interesting, from my perspective, and I'm sure it's, I don't know if it's backed up by any research, but, you talked about those 21 days to develop a new habit and, et cetera, et cetera. I fundamentally 100% agree with that, but I also think, because of that burnt-in neural pathway, it only takes one bad day or one bad decision to actually go back into the old ways. And, and I've seen so many people get challenged by that. You know, they've been doing really, really well. They've been, you know, maybe 3 months, you know, without having alcohol, for example. And then all of a sudden they have a beer, and then all of a sudden they're having another couple of beers, and then they do it the next day, and they keep telling themselves, I'll get back into it. And sometimes when you get caught up back, you reignite that old neural pathway. It can be really quite challenging because you've then got to work doubly hard to get back out of it. So, Marquetta, what's the vision for you going forward?
What you just mentioned there? Yeah. I also do NLP. I'm an NLP practitioner, and part of one of the systems I have is BioFeedback. It's the EVOX system. So EVOX is it's voice, basically. It stands for voice. So what the EVOX does, it looks at your perception, like some of these programs that you're talking about, and it actually, sometimes we get into that loop where we don't know how to break that habit. And I even learned that even when I use NLP techniques, and I love the timeline therapy. And so when I go through and I coach the client, sometimes what I'll do, I will then connect them to the EVOX system, and it listens to the voice. Okay. So in the voice, there's a certain frequency or imprint. So even if you and I could be having a conversation, you can say, I'm having a wonderful day and things are great, but it's all in your voice. Your voice could be saying something different. So what the system does, it records your voice, and then it sends out an output. And so the output is actually shifting your unconscious mind to find better decisions that will work better for you. So when you talk about, you know, the person has been drinking and they fall off the wagon, you can have a little bit of assistance to kind of help you. That has also helped me on my journey. So sometimes, even when I don't have time to really focus and get myself back, I just connect to EVOX.
Oh, wow.
And I do some work. Yeah. So it's through Zyto. Zyto is
that's excellent. Yes. I didn't know that existed. So there we go. One of the things I love about this podcast is that I get to learn something new. So I'll need to look that up, EVOX. So
yeah, it's by Zyto Technology. Yes. Excellent.
Mm-hmm. So what's the vision for you moving forward?
The vision moving forward is I'm really looking to, I have a passion for working with women and young girls, and I would like to create more programs as far as when it comes to how to learn to transition into a holistic way of living, and to create help to develop more leaders, because like I said, we have to learn to become an advocate for our own health. And through that, it takes knowledge and it takes wisdom. And so the women that I come in contact with, I also invite them to become a part of my tribe. And these are other professional women or women that's been down on their luck, and we just really work together to create a great support system so that we can continue to grow and evolve into these beautiful women, or just continue as we continue on this path. Yep.
Excellent. So out of everything you've accomplished over the last couple of years, what are you most proud of?
One of the things I'm most proud of is me believing in myself and taking the leap to do something that I really enjoy. Yeah. Excellent.
That's powerful, and a really powerful message there for anyone that's listening, and to actually feel that value that you can bring to the world and unleash that and have an impact and help people is just something that's driven by it's driven by purpose, and it's just one of those wonderful things I get to see. Marquetta, is there anything that I haven't asked you that I should have asked you?
Something you asked me, should have asked me. One of the things that that comes to mind, it's like we've talked about so much. It's been great. I guess the power of acceptance. I really want to,
Okay.
just acceptance and visualization. Maybe that. Even so, for those that's actually facing some maybe difficult times, and one of the things that had actually helped me along the journey is a lot of times we may only see what's going on in our current situation, but if you could see, what I've learned to do is in my mind's eye is see the end result. See whatever it is that I'm trying to manifest in my life. And I'll take that back to corporate. Prior to me leaving, actually last 2019, I was in a position when I came into corporate. I came in at there's a certain scale, and once you come in at a certain level, you're pretty much stuck there. And so I wanted to go into a different position. And so I was told because of how I started, it was going to be difficult. I would be able to move into the position, but I wouldn't be able to get the pay that the position was, that I would never be able to get that level of pay. And regardless of what everyone else told me, I focused on what I believed to be true and what I believed that I deserved. And so I actually got invited to come in for the interview, and what I did, I never saw myself going through the interview. I only saw the end result. I saw myself receiving the offer letter with the amount of money that I wanted, and I went through a 2-hour panel interview. After the interview, and which is pretty much unheard of in corporate, the hiring manager, he actually came to my cubicle because it was an internal position, and he said he wanted to talk to me, and he offered me the position. So not only did I receive the position, I received a $30,000 increase in pay. And that's, yes, plus a 10% bonus. And he said because he recognized that I was not being paid what I was worth, as far as with the level of experience and education that I had. So with that being said, if you believe in yourself and you believe what you deserve, and you find, and you know you deserve it, and you never allow someone else to put a value on you. If you can see it and you take it, it's yours. But I had what they were called, I think Lisa Nichols mentions, unwavering faith. I already knew it was mine. I didn't care about what everyone else said. I just focused on the end goal. So
excellent.
That would be it.
Excellent. That visualization techniques, it is absolutely powerful when we see it. Once again, great story that supports that whole thing, but we see athletes, we see Olympians. The power of visualization is just incredible. They see themselves winning, and they see themselves following the process that's going to get the result that they want. So absolutely powerful. Steve Maraboli always talks about creating a vision using the imagination that you used to have as a kid.
Yes.
And once again, we were allowed to dream when we were kids, and then as life knocks us around, we stop our dreaming. And dreams are a whole different story, I guess. So how can people connect with you, Marquetta?
They can reach me on my website at P21Mind-Body.com, or email me at info@P21Mind-Body.com, or you can connect with me on social media. I'm on Facebook and also on Instagram or even LinkedIn.
Excellent. Marquetta, it's been an absolute pleasure having you today on the Today's Leader. Thank you very much for investing in the leaders of today.
Have a wonderful day.
You too.
All righty. Bye-bye.